Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. No matter where you're joining us in the world, make sure that greeting's there for you. And welcome to NGPA's very first kickoff of this new offering. It's our Up in the Air webinar series. My name is Brian Gambino, president of the NGPA, and I'm so glad you could all be here to join us. For those of you who have joined us at a couple of our different NGPA educational webinars over the course of the past 10 months, this setting might be familiar. The pizza that's always above my head. NGPA has conducted about 8 now informational webinars. We began them back in April, really as a way to bring information to our membership as well as the entire aviation community at large as we deal with this global worldwide pandemic of COVID-19. It has certainly thrown not only the aviation industry for quite the tumble, but also the entire world. And it's really good to stay up to date on different pieces of information across the industry, as well as to keep a connection between all of us in our time apart. Here at the NGPA, for those of you who are not familiar, we are the worldwide LGBT aviation community. We're an organization that has 30 years of history this year in bringing together members of the LGBT community who have passions that fall within aviation. Over the years, a lot of folks within the LGBTQ community, not only in aviation, but throughout the world, have suffered from different pieces of oppression, from different pieces of non-acceptance. And that is the reason why NGPA exists. We've become a community, a global family of aviators and LGBTQ aviators who have come together to support each other's dreams, to support each other's wants and aspirations, and to be a family in place of a family they may have lost because of the fact that they were LGBTQ. So we are a global family here at NGPA, and the LGBTQ plus community also includes our allies. And we are so happy to have so many of our allies joining us here on this webinar, so many of our allies joining us at our flagship events when we used to hold events, and so many of our allies continuing to fight the good fight for the LGBTQ community in your worlds, in your circles, and across the world itself. So the Up in the Air webinar series today is our kickoff, and we'll be featuring a company that you all know by the name of UPS, United Parcel Service, as they used to be called. As our world continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, large in-person gatherings are still a thing of the past. And the NGPA had to officially postpone, many of you may already know, our NGPA Industry Expo event, which has grown to be the second largest industry event in the aviation community of gathering together aviators, whether it be general aviation, commercial aviation, business aviation, or aviation enthusiasts, putting them in front of companies that are open-minded, that are progressive, and that are constantly looking to make connections with new folks to bring on board at their companies. So normally we host our event in Palm Springs, California. Maybe many of you have attended that before in the past. And unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, that event is postponed for this coming February, with hopes that possibly as we get to the later portion of 2021, we'll be able to host an Industry Expo event, maybe in a bit of a different setup, maybe in a smaller scale, but the opportunity exists. So make sure you pay attention to our website at ngpa.org to see about information that we'll develop with that. We'll make a final decision on the possibility of an NGPA Industry Expo in the latter portion of 2021, no later than May 1st. So you can look to that for more information. With the postponement of that event, we knew that we had to do something innovative here at NGPA to make sure that we could bring value and service to our members, to connect them with different companies, to connect them with products and services at aviation companies and whatnot, as well as the aviation community as a whole, to bring up-to-date information direct to everyone's screens. We tackled with the idea, should we host a virtual career fair? Should we host a 1 or 2 day event that brings everyone together? And we just didn't think that was enough. So that is how the Up in the Air webinar series came to be. We figured, why not spread this out across multiple months? That's right, multiple months we plan on doing this on a regular basis to bring companies, to give them a platform to speak to the aviation community as a whole, give them an update as to what's going on at their companies, how they have pivoted to handle this pandemic, how they've changed their business practices, what their hope is for recovery, or what you'll find today, how we're kicking off our Up in the Air webinar series. We're going to hear about the different changes that a company has made. Sorry about this. Something was popping up there. Making different changes that a company has made right now to handle an uptick in business. A lot of our cargo operators, such as UPS, they have seen an incredible uptick in their business right now throughout this pandemic, and they're here to talk to you about that today. So again, the Up in the Air webinar series, here it is, kicking off today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And be sure to check out our schedule. We're going to put it in the chat section there, the link for the other sessions we'll be hosting over the next couple months. We also have a bunch of other content that's going to be added to that schedule shortly. Right now, there's just a listing of different commercial airlines that'll be meeting with us between now and the end of March. But also, we're going to be adding some different general aviation content. We have the United States military will also be joining us for some information of how they're battling the pandemic and how they're making changes to their recruitment process during this time. We also have some experts in the world of aviation safety who are going to be joining us to talk about the changes in aviation safety practices, not only for actually flying aircraft, but also updates and changes to aviation safety due to the actual pandemic, and changes that airlines have had to make on board, changes that general aviation companies and flight schools have had to make in terms of operating their smaller aircraft. So a lot of great content is on the way, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I see it was just posted down in the chat right now, so you can check that out. So how we're going to go from here, we're going to welcome our feature guest in just a moment. We're going to go through some talking points with them, learn a little bit more about what's going on at their company, learn about some of the innovative new portions of their company that are debuting, which are offering other employment opportunities, as well as at the end, we're going to go to your questions. That's where we'll spend the bulk of our time, opening up to a live question and answer session where everyone here attending on the webinar will be able to ask your question in real time. Maybe not everyone, we only have an hour here, folks, but you'll be able to ask your question in real time to our guests from UPS, and they will do their best to answer those questions. You will see down at the bottom of your screen, if you are on the actual webinar on your computer or handheld smartphone device, you should see a chat function, so you can pay attention to the chat that's going on. Some people are saying hello, we're dropping pieces of information in there. And you'll also see a raise hand function. Once we get to the question and answer portion of today's webinar, if you do have a question, you're just going to hit your raise hand function. At that point, we will unmute your microphone. Don't worry, you won't be on camera. We will only unmute your microphone, and you'll be able to ask your question in real time to our two panelists who are here today from UPS. So I'll review that once we get to that point. But for now, let's get to the part that you're all here for. It is my pleasure to have UPS joining us today here. UPS has been a proud sponsor of the NGPA for many years now. They've been regular attendees of our industry expo events, regular advertisers in our Contrails publication. That's our 4 times quarterly publication magazine, as well as our as well as our Navigator publication, a monthly publication. They've just been incredible partners here for us at the NGPA, and we're so glad that they are kicking off our Up in the Air webinar series. So joining us today, I'm going to ask you to come on camera now with us, unmute your microphones, and let's give a chit chat with everyone here who's joining us, over 188 participants right now. Joining you on your screen is the Supervisor of Talent Acquisition for UPS, that's Stephanie Mooney, as well as the HR Supervisor for a very new element to UPS, that's the UPS Flight Forward program. Please welcome Michelle Mitchell. Stephanie and Michelle, thank you so much for joining us, and good afternoon.
Thank you, and good afternoon to you. I do want to let you know, Brian, you didn't see me, but through your whole speech, I was laughing and smiling because that was awesome. And secondarily, I miss Palm Beach or Palm Springs. Yes, I want to go back. So when you have it again, just have it there.
To 2022, the dates are set, February 10th through the 13th. Mark your calendar now. We'll be back in Palm Springs for sure. That's a place that's really at the heart of NGPA, where we hosted one of our very first events, and that's why we always end up back there. For everyone who's listening, since you brought it up, Stephanie, I will say a lot of people who come to our Industry Expo event say, "Oh, why do you host it there? It's so hard to get there." The reason you're hearing it direct from me is because it's a very special place for the NGPA, very special place for our organization, and we always love to support that local community there. So there's the reasoning behind it. So Stephanie and Michelle, thank you for joining us to represent UPS today, to bring us through some pivots that your company has made throughout this pandemic, to give us an outlook on where you're going from here, as I can't even call it recovery from you. You all have been, I mean, the metal to the floor, however you want to call, pedal to the metal. That's the word I was looking for. Yes. Pedal to the metal in really carrying our global economy in terms of commerce, of packages and whatnot for the past couple months, while the airlines have kind of had a sad, unfortunate break. So whoever wants to kick it off, tell us about it. Tell us about what's going on at UPS.
So, and Michelle, jump in anywhere I'm missing something or any information you want to share too. But as you mentioned, Brian, we've been fortunate as a company and have been operating at peak levels pretty much since March, since COVID shut almost everybody else down. We continued to take in new aircraft. So I believe it was like 14 planes that we purchased and brought into the operation. Throughout the year, we were at about 3 million, close to 3 million processing in the air volume every single day here in Louisville at Worldport, which is where I'm at. And for our Christmas season, we processed almost 5 million packages in a 24-hour period, which for us is that's a lot of packages. That's a lot of packages. And as you know, we've been involved with delivering of PPE throughout the country, throughout the world, and we're directly involved with the vaccines being delivered as well. And as far as pivoting with the company, it was just getting more hands on board. Generally, peak for us is all hands on deck. Throughout the year, we were getting more hands. So wherever anyone could come into the operation and help out, we did that. The company, as you know, is being led by a new CEO, Carol Tomei, who is not a long-term UPSer, as has been in the past. She's coming to us from a slightly different company, different industry, with a different mindset. And she is changing the focus of the company to delivering what matters, making a difference throughout the world by delivering what matters. And what that has done for us over this last year is brought more people from outside of UPS to help us refocus, as well as to make the workplace a much more inclusive environment. So delivering what matters includes UPSers. And I could say for myself, I was more than excited. I threw my hands up in the air when for simple things like our dress code changed, where we are now including natural hairstyles like the one I have, braids, locks, things that previously, beards, I do want to mention that as well, previously had been against our company policy, but for those of us who enjoy those types of hairstyles, we're a little more comfortable now coming into the workplace. I am, as you mentioned, a talent acquisition supervisor for UPS, and I'm in charge of pilot hiring. So we had to do a huge pivot in our processes. Previously, folks being interviewed would come in to Louisville and be physically face-to-face interviewed by human resources, which would include myself, and then sim evaluated to determine your technical skills. With COVID being as it is, as dangerous as it was initially, we stopped the in-person interviews and went to a Zoom platform, so a virtual platform just like this for interviews, and began to reassess how we can determine what those technical skills actually are. And we're still working through those processes. We did interview quite a few, and I saw some hellos from some people that we did interview virtually. So I know you're out there, and we are continuing to hire as well, which was one of the benefits that we got to experience throughout this period. Much unlike several other carriers, we continue to interview and hire. And as I mentioned to you earlier, Brian, I just got notification today that our class sizes for March, April, and May are in the range of 30 pilots each. So it's 90 pilots that we're looking at hiring for the next few months.
Definitely exciting for everyone listening,
yes.
Because I know just in working with UPS in the past couple of years, I mean, Dan Thomas, I used to work with Dan Thomas at UPS, and when I say working there, I don't work for UPS, disclaimer, everyone. In my previous role in NGPA before I took over as president, Industry Expo was my baby, if you will. And I worked with Dan Thomas, and the hiring numbers then were lower than they are now. And it's just so incredible to see what companies thrive in a pandemic and what companies don't thrive. And that's okay. It's all part of the whole business circle of life, if you will, and whatnot. But no, it's really interesting to see. And just a funny joke I have to put in there. So since you're not doing the sim eval, what you're saying is now's my chance to apply because I'm not that great of a pilot.
Actually, the interviews are a little more challenging because we're trying to get at those, and we're looking at different ways to process that. So we're moving towards some other assessments that will help us to do that, because for us, it still doesn't make sense from a health and safety standpoint to bring folks in for a simulator evaluation. You understand how close that space is. There's no way you're going to get 6 feet of separation. and you're in a simulator for over an hour. So we're doing everything we can to maintain the health and safety of the pilot hiring staff, as well as any of the candidates who are coming in, and then for or being interviewed. And for everyone who has been interviewed and has gotten notification about the application process, every year at the end of the year, we start over. So old applications are expired, and new applications we ask you to fill out for each calendar year. That notification went out on December 28th, and I'm sure a few of you got it. As long as you filled out your application from December 28th through today, it will count for 2021. For those of you who did get notification that you're still being considered for positions, that is still the case. So with those class numbers that I mentioned, there are opportunities, several opportunities for you to potentially be put into one of those classes. So please be patient with us as we move through that process. But overall, I have to be thankful for working for UPS in this time, because honestly, when COVID started, we didn't necessarily know what was going to happen with hiring. So we were fortunate to continue to do that. And this has also shown us so many different ways that you can assess the skills of a pilot and whether or not a person is going to be a great UPSer. It doesn't always have to happen face to face. So to finish with what I wanted to say, I do want to say thank you to NGPA for giving us the opportunity to kick this series off. I know I am and Michelle are both excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to any questions that you have, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot. So I want to pass the floor to Michelle to talk a little bit about Flight Forward.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. Again, I am Michelle Mitchell, and I've been with UPS for a number of years. I used to work in Stephanie's role a couple of years ago, doing the professional hiring for the airline side of the business, and most recently got offered an opportunity to move over to Flight Forward. It's called UPS Flight Forward. It is a wholly owned subsidiary of UPS focused on drone delivery. The company was formally launched in July of 2019, and on October 1st of 2019 became the first company to receive the FAA full 135 standard certification, which allows our company to operate an unlimited remote controlled drone delivery network in the United States. Our team started with a small group of UPSers. We only started with 7 UPS employees, and those employees were placed on a special assignment. In just over a year, we've grown to have 49 UPSers dedicated to the commercial drone delivery. So that's pretty exciting for us. We're expecting and anticipating growth in that operation. UPS leads the way in new delivery choices, so it's fitting that UPS Flight Forward operated the first revenue-generating drone delivery. And I'm especially proud that it was operated by an all-female team, all-female flight crew. So that's pretty exciting. We currently have ongoing operations in North Carolina and Florida, and we'd like to build upon those operations and be able to expand. As far as the future goes, we want to remain a leader in the drone industry and be an advocate for more complex operations. For instance, have aircraft that can fly farther and take on heavier payloads. Of course, safety is always a priority for us at Flight Forward. And then at the end of the day, we want a product that we can integrate into the UPS Smart Logistics Network. In March of 2019, that's when UPS started delivering medical supplies via unmanned drones. And we did this at WakeMed Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina. With the approval of the FAA and the North Carolina Department of Transportation, we plan to conduct daily routine flights, transporting medical samples and specimens, such as blood samples. What happens is the drones are loaded by a medical professional at the origin facility, and then the drone flies along a predetermined route to a fixed landing pad at WakeMed's main hospital and their central pathology lab. Since this has began, we've operated over 3,800 successful drone delivery flights, and we're continuing this operation. Of course, COVID happened and the pandemic happened in 2020, and drone delivery emerged as a much more rapid delivery of essential healthcare items. It provided high-risk seniors and a rapid and contactless delivery option to remain healthy at home. So that was exciting. And one of the things that happened is we actually went into the villages in Orlando, near Orlando, Florida. It's a retirement community. And we partnered with a company with CVS Pharmacy. And what we do there is offer same-day delivery to the villages in Florida to support social distancing. So what happens is, they put the prescription, connect it to the drone, and they fly it over to a church parking lot that is located adjacent to the villages. And then from there, the prescriptions are taken into the community via a golf cart driver. So we currently have 3 golf cart drivers that take these prescriptions into the residential neighborhood. Since March of 2020, CVS has processed over 700 successful drone deliveries. So we're pretty excited about that. Drones can be the fastest mode of delivery for urgent healthcare items that are time or temperature sensitive. It currently takes about 30 minutes to fully complete a delivery. Currently, a drone is used to transport prescriptions from CVS Pharmacy, like I said, to that church adjacent to the villages in Florida. And then, something that happened just recently, just this past week, I'm sorry, not this past week, but very recent in the last month or so, Flight Forward recently took delivery of an autonomous vehicle. So it kind of looks like our package car, but it's not called a package car, it's called an autonomous vehicle. And what the plan is to take that to Florida, to the villages, and they're going to use it there for testing. And the plan is to test our last mile deliveries in some rural areas. So for the testing phase of it, what they plan to do is take it into the neighborhood, but what they'll do is take it to the rear of the neighborhood to make deliveries in the farthest part of the neighborhood so that, we can reach everybody. Like I said before, we started with a small team of 7 people, but we've grown and we're continuing to grow. We've recently had some positions posted out on upsjobs.com, positions such as a technical pilot supervisor, a UAS regulatory supervisor, and a director of UAS operations. So if this is of interest to any of you, I encourage you to check out the upsjobs.com website and look for those opportunities because there will be several. So, that's pretty much what I had to share about the drone delivery side of the business. It is new. Like I said, I'm new to this part of the business, but very excited.
Michelle, I think that is so cool. My husband and I purchased a drone 3 years ago, and we think that we're pretty, can I say it? I guess badass. We think we're pretty badass with our drone, and we've used it like 4 times in a matter of 2 years. I know that's offensive to the drone community, but I have a question. So the drones that you're utilizing, are they like what I would assume a DJI Phantom 2, 4, whatever I might have, or are these massive drones that are, how large are they?
No, they're not the massive ones. Gosh, I can't even tell you. I think it can hold up to 70 pounds in the payload right now is what they can deliver.
And for pilot positions, are you hiring drone pilots actively, or is that something that's going to be coming down the road?
Okay, so we are hiring drone pilots. We call them RPICs, Remote Pilot in Command. And we are actually hiring contingent workers for those positions. Because we are a new startup business, we are not hiring permanent pilots at this time. We hope to bring them on board, hopefully, within 3 years. But right now, like I said, we're using the contingent workforce. So we have currently 12 RPICs, Remote Piloting Commands, that work for us. And we have, I think 3 of them are located in Florida, and we have some in North Carolina. We have some in Louisville that are doing the testing. They use a field out in Shelbyville, Kentucky to test these drones. And then we have 3 golf cart drivers that are located in the villages. They are also contingent workers.
Cool. That's so interesting. The progression of technology of where we're going from the big plane behind Stephanie going to a drone for that final mile kind of
Yes.
delivery, as you said. And is the big idea in the end, I'm not sure if you can share this, is the business idea in the end for UPS to basically go from where Stephanie is, plain side, and start actually making deliveries direct to consumer, or that's way off?
I think that's way off for right now. I can't really speak to that. I'm not for sure.
I didn't say I was going to ask easy questions. This is just stuff that popped in my head right now.
Right.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing about that part of your business with UPS Flight Forward. And is there a separate there's a separate website to check out, right? upsflightforward.com for more information on that?
Well, to find out about our jobs, it's out there on the same place as you would apply for jobs that Stephanie would have available. It's at upsjobs.com. Now, if you have questions, I know at the end of this session, you're going to post our email addresses.
Sure.
Yes, and Stephanie and I will have separate email addresses. So if you're going to reach out and send me an email, you're going to send it to the Flight Forward email address.
Okay.
And for Stephanie, I can't remember what her email address is.
Oh yeah, yes. And we'll have that up on the screen for everyone as well. Another question, Stephanie, for you, do you know actively right now how many applications you have on hand for pilot positions at UPS?
I do not, but I can tell you that we ended last year with 7,000 plus.
Wow.
And that had a lot to do with, and it was almost 3,000, a little over 3,000 more than the application flow in 2019. And that had everything to do with COVID and the pandemic and how it's affected airlines. So what that has done for us, as you all probably know, is that we're looking for not just the pilot who has the minimum qualifications, but the pilot who is highly qualified, very competitive. And that has allowed us we've actually gotten more of those competitive pilots. So those benchmarks that we're generally looking for, a highly competitive 121 or commercial pilot is going to have in the range of an average of 6,000 flight hours. So I say average because you do have highs and lows, but on average, we see 6,000 total flight hours and an average of about 3,000 turbine PIC. We are definitely looking for folks, when we're talking about being highly qualified, who have bachelor's degrees, who have experience with international flying, so ocean crossings, that helps. We're looking for folks who have other qualifications, so being a line check airman or a chief pilot if you're moving from a smaller airline to UPS. Those kinds of things we're able to look a little more closely for because, again, we do have so many. We just opened up the application on UPS Jobs, as Michelle mentioned. It just went live for 2021 last Wednesday, so 8 days ago. I would say that we probably have a couple of thousand. I haven't checked myself yet because we are still working through the folks that we interviewed last year. So once we get through all of those, as far as consideration, if we are still considering them for positions, we'll start actively interviewing the folks that are applying right now. Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, no, it answered my question and probably a lot more questions that I had there. So thank you for going into detail there. I can only imagine the very, very large task that is to go through that level of applications. And what would you say in comparison to pre-pandemic? Where were you normally sitting in terms of applications on file versus what happened post-pandemic?
So it would be in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 on an annual basis. And I mentioned the numbers that we're looking at hiring for the next 3 months. Last year, we hired 227 pilots. The year before, I believe it was 246. So to have about 4,000 applications on file for 250 to potentially 300 positions, that allows us, again, to look for that highly competitive pilot versus someone who just has the minimum qualifications to fill out an application. So yeah, pandemic almost doubled the number of applications that we had on file.
Cool. Some of the things that I found interesting about what you both talked about is number one, I love the fact that I think something that we need to recognize here, the two leaders here at UPS are women. that are speaking to us here on that webinar, and the fact that your new CEO is Carol. What an incredible thing, especially for a minority organization like ourselves here at NGPA. We have our own women's committee, and I just have to say it makes me proud as a white male. So I really don't have a lot of background to speak on. I'm a gay white male, so I have a little bit of a platform, I suppose. But no, I'm really proud of the both of you for the positions you're taking there and for the progression that UPS is making in hiring top talent females to lead the organization. That's a really cool sign. And to any women who are sitting on this webinar here with us right now, I mean, you can see right there that UPS is a company that you definitely want to have a place in, because they are definitely making a space for women in this line of work. And that is absolutely incredible. So that's number one. Number two, the way that you said the Zoom platform interviews, how you're able to kind of really get to know people, maybe even a little bit more than in person. I would say in-person interviews, it follows such, or maybe in the past, I can't speak to UPSs. I've never interviewed there. I've never applied, sorry. The process that you probably went by was one that was established for a long time. So this change to your application process, to your review process, it's actually probably a good thing, because it's giving you a way to see a different type of candidate, or to maybe see someone in a different light on a virtual call that could maybe give you a little bit more of a peer into their personality, a little bit more of a window into the type of person that they are, that you might not even see in person because you follow such a strict mold of how interviews are supposed to be run. So I think it's kind of a cool change, kind of a cool pivot. And I don't know if you've noticed a big change in maybe getting to know people better via a virtual experience than maybe in person. What do you think?
I can tell you from my experiences that folks are still super nervous doing an interview, even on Zoom. But things like, for example, your pizza in the background, that tells me a little bit about, the pizza on the wall, tells me a little bit about you. I've seen folks with aircraft on the wall behind them, their family on the wall behind them, determining where they're even going to take the interview, if they do it at home versus potentially going to a hotel. So that says some things about folks. I've seen some people who have notes written down, and you can tell because they keep looking down at their notes to make sure that they're answering questions correctly. They have the opportunity for the more technical questions that we're asking to write down the questions so that they can figure out what the answer actually is, instead of trying to do mental math, which I can say is not a strong point for me. But that Zoom platform lets us know some of those things. It also makes at least the interview process a little bit faster. We used to have to wait until the candidate could potentially get to Louisville, right? But now doing that Zoom platform, I can interview you whenever you have an hour or so out of your day to sit and talk with us, actually almost an hour and a half, but to sit and talk with us about this versus trying to schedule you getting here. So from the interview perspective anyway, it's made it a little bit faster. So that's been helpful.
That's interesting. That is, I think that's, yeah, I don't know, that's super cool. And if I was interviewing, I probably wouldn't show you what's just to my left, but I'll show you now. What goes well with pizza, but our wine collection is over there as well. So heck, I might have even shown that interview in an interview after all. I'm kind of crazy like that. So just a time check, we're at 3:30, I'm sorry, I'm in Central Time. We are at 4:35 Eastern Time right now. 4:35 Eastern Time, about 25 more minutes left in our session here. So we're going to pivot to question and answer. I know that there's a lot of questions coming within our chat box. I will hit a couple of those, and we're going to take some live questions. And I have some questions that have been submitted via our social channels as well. One cool question that just came, do you hire pilots in Europe? Do you have any European bases right now?
We do not. So for aircraft pilots anyway, when anyone is hired, they do have to be able to work in the United States. We do ask that you have a valid passport, but your initial training and the domiciles are all going to be US based. We do have a lot of pilots who fly pretty consistently in Europe and Asia Pacific, but everyone is going to be domiciled somewhere in the United States.
Okay. Caroline, there you go. There's the answer to that question. So if I'm just going to refresh everyone, you will see on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a raise hand option. If you have a question that you would like to ask live, to both Stephanie and Michelle. Now is the time to hit the raise hand function. That will order in the order in which whoa, it's happening very quickly there. That'll order up for us. So we will go in the order in which your hands are raised. Just a note, we are not going to be able to get to everyone's questions. We have just about another 24 minutes left remaining here. We will be posting at the very end of this 2 email addresses which you can contact. If your question is not answered here, both Michelle and Stephanie have been kind enough to provide to us an email address which you can send a message to and ask your question if you need some further follow-up or whatnot. So get ready, you've asked for it, Stephanie and Michelle, for more email questions coming your way. Before we jump into asking these live questions, I just want to talk once more about NGPA. Like I told you, UPS has been a proud sponsor of NGPA for quite some time now, and we have a totality of other incredible sponsors as well. One of those great sponsors is our friends at Corodyne Aviation. Many of you may be familiar with Corodyne Aviation. They are the makers of Log 10 Pro, which is the professional pilot digital logbook. And many of you probably use that same product actually to get your logbooks ready for interviews such as the one hopefully you might be getting with UPS in the future. So we just have a quick message from our friends at Corodyne, and it's a really cool message, I think, for all the pilots out there. Really watch it, really listen to it. I know we have 12 phone call-in listeners, so you won't be able to see the graphics with it, but you'll be able to listen. Pretty cool play on what we deal with our logbooks on a regular basis. We will be right back live with the question and answer session, but first, a quick message from our platinum level sponsor at Corodyne Aviation.
We all had a dream to fly, to have a career in the sky. Perhaps most of us didn't realize that our dream to fly for a living would involve being a mathematician? Okay, 6,624.7 total minus 1,164.8 night equals 7 minus 8, borrow the 1, or being a lawyer. Okay, rest period means a continuous period determined prospectively during which the flight crew member is free from all restraint by the certificate holder, including freedom from present responsibility. What the Keep the dream alive. Automate all that other stuff with Log 10 Pro, the professional pilot's choice. Corodyne Aviation Systems, proud sponsor of the NGPA.
Awesome video from Corodyne and their product there with Log 10 Pro. For those of you who are NGPA members, you get a discount on Log 10 Pro subscriptions. You can check that out at ngpa.org. Once you sign into your member account, go to the discounts tab. You'll see a bunch of other discounts there, along with one for a Log 10 Pro subscription. For anyone out there who wants to become an NGPA member, we love supporting we love having ally members as part of the organization as well. Just $49 a year to become a member of NGPA, and you'll get access to all of these discounts and more. You can join ngpa.org in the top right portion. You can click join here. Let's get to our question and answer session. Here we go. Kicking it off, Mr. Eddie George. Eddie George, we are going to unmute you right now. You have the ability to speak live here with Stephanie and Michelle. Eddie, how are you doing? Eddie, you're muted. If you could unmute yourself. There we go.
There we are. Do you have me?
We do. Hey, Eddie, how's everything up in Alaska?
It's good. It's good. Good to see you, Brian, and Stephanie and Michelle. Thanks so much for your time today. Just had a question. So applying for UPS, I'm going to keep this as broad as I can. It seems like putting in an application, once you put it in, there's not necessarily a way to update it. Is that right? Mine was flagged inactive right away upon submission. I'm not exactly sure why, but it would be nice to go in there and be able to update, with any advancements that you go through if you become an instructor or whatnot. Is there any way around that?
So Eddie, I will say that the application system is not actually designed to update. And any of you out there who, once you filled out your application, if you were immediately flagged as inactive, if you remember where I was discussing highly competitive applicants, our application tracking system determines who's competitive and not competitive. So the benchmarks, the averages that I was talking about, if you haven't achieved those as of yet in your aviation career, our application tracking system will make your application inactive, which then does not allow you to update any information. You would have to wait until the next calendar year to start a new application. If your application is still active, you can go in and update information. I will let you know that there's no notification to us as a hiring team that says, for example, Eddie George did update his application. So we wouldn't necessarily know until or if your application is pulled in our random process. So people being pulled out of that tracking system is completely random, but first you would need to be considered highly competitive by that automated system. So short answer to your question, unfortunately, with your application, if it is inactive, you are not able to update it right now. For anyone who is active at the moment, you can put updates in there, and so that they are there when your application is pulled. We're just not notified of any updates to happen.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And yeah, I had considered maybe not putting in right away pending some advancement from where I'm at, but I'll debate on that. Thanks so much for the answer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Stephanie. And here we go. Michael Strickler, you're up next. Michael Strickler, if you can unmute your microphone, you're here live with us. You can ask Stephanie and Michelle a question.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure can.
Hi there. Just wanted to thank you also for hosting this. It's nice to be able to talk to everybody. My question more so deals with previously the NGPA Industry Expo really was a great opportunity for us to meet with the representatives from UPS and talk face to face. Is there any sort of plan for any other in-person, well, probably not in-person events, but opportunities for prospective pilot candidates to interact with UPS on a one-to-one setting?
Outside of interviews at the moment, there is not, but I will tell you my wheels are spinning right now being a part of this session here today, that maybe potentially down the road, we may look at something like that. But as of today, UPS doesn't have any plans for one-on-one interaction with anyone. I'm sure you understand, Michael, the numbers of people who might be interested in that would be kind of prohibitive as far as time and resources that we have on this side. As I mentioned earlier, and I know Michelle is doing the same thing, we're hiring. So the ability to interact, we would be hiring versus being able to do something like this, but are on a one-on-one basis. But we are looking at the opportunities. We're excited about the potential for something like this. We just don't have anything planned at the moment. I don't know about you, Michelle, do you?
We do not have anything planned either. I mean, we are open to, we're looking at options at career fairs and how career fairs are going to be hosted moving forward, and we want to be a part of those. But at the present time, we don't have anything that we're planning to do in person outside of an interview. And interviews, I mean, we're doing those via Zoom as well on our side of the house.
And for what it's worth, Michael, I know I can tell you from my experience in terms of trying to actively keep the possibility of an event to happen. Aside from our Industry Expo event, we also host a very large membership event in Palm Springs. That's our winter warm-up. And we held on to every strand of possibility to possibly have small 20-person gatherings, 50-person gatherings, and even that has been squashed. The ever-changing local restrictions on gatherings within each county, each city, each state changes so dramatically that it's just so hard to plan anything right now. So in terms of the aviation space, our Industry Expo event in February has been postponed. Women in Aviation's event has been canceled in March. The next possibility right now is the OBAP conference, the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. That will be in August. And I know I talked with the leadership there, Joel, who is the new chairman at OBAP, as well as Vanessa, the outgoing chairwoman. I know that they are poised to make a decision on that early in spring in regards to whether or not that'll happen. So we look forward to getting back in person, but for now, here we are. Zoom is what we got.
Thank you very much. I much appreciate it. I did want to ask too, if I might, just you mentioned what your qualifications are for a highly competitive 121 or commercial operator. How about the military side? For those of us that are military, what do you consider highly competitive on that side?
So it is a little bit different because we understand that in the military, you're not flying as frequently. Generally, it's around 2,000 to 3,000 total flight hours for the military, but we're also still looking for at least 1,000 turbine PIC. Any of the certifications that you've gotten as far as being a line check airman, any of the more leadership positions that you might have gotten in your military career helps. We're still looking for a bachelor's degree. So the only difference really is the total number of flight hours versus a commercial pilot. Again, commercial in the range of about 6,000 on average, and with the military, 2,000 to 3,000.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Michael. Next up, Jesus Gonzalez. Jesus, welcome to the webinar. If you could unmute your microphone, you can go ahead with your question.
Hi, Brian. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for putting this together. And Michelle and Stephanie, thanks for your help. Also active duty military. So my question actually just got answered on the 2,000 to 3,000 military hours. But perhaps, Stephanie, one more question. A lot of rumor about 300 pilots being hired for 2021. Is that still your projection for this year?
I do not know what the projection is past April. I can tell you that we hired 23 in January. We are planning on hiring 43 in February. March is 30, April is 30, and then May, I'm sorry, I don't know past May, but May is 26. So we're off to a great start on the year toward that 300 number. So the interviewing is going to continue. Job offers are still being made. We're, again, fortunate to continue to be hiring. So I would say that we will come very close to that 300 number, if not surpass it at this pace by the end of the year.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time and the answer to the question.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesus. Next up, sorry if I mess up your name, Robert Legal. Robert Legal, you are up now. You can go ahead and unmute your microphone. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Stephanie. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for participating in this. It was kind of a last minute thing, I'm sure. But and thanks, Brian, for help setting it up. But I'm more in question of, and I'm sure it determines based on what fleet type, but what type of schedules do the pilots' typical months consist of? How long are they away, and things of that nature?
So our pilots fly an average of 14 days a month. They are guaranteed 75 hours, and each pilot determines their own schedule. So you get an opportunity to bid on a schedule every 7 weeks, I believe it is. Is that correct, Michelle? 7 weeks?
Yes.
Yes. So that you can change your schedule up as your life, 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, how are you? Nick Donner, UPSer, everybody. Every 8 weeks, you can bid on a new schedule and set the schedule based on what your life needs are. So from that aspect, UPSers are very flexible. The differences in COVID right now has made a difference for our international flying, our international flights, because of the difference in effect with different countries. We've been flying much more frequently. Initially, we were flying more frequently in Asia Pacific and Europe, and now it has slowed down just a little bit because of a resurgence of the new strain that we've heard about recently. So again, our pilots fly on average 14 days a month out of 28 flying days. And the schedule that you have is really up to you.
Thank you for that. Information that was difficult to find.
I'm sorry, Robert?
That was some information that I couldn't find anywhere, so I appreciate that answer.
And of course, we don't want to publish it because it varies for every pilot. And I'm sure I saw Nick on here. He can testify to the fact that it changes quite a bit. But essentially, we give you the opportunity to bid for schedules based on the fleet type.
And of course, I want to add too, it's based on seniority as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that question. And since Nick Donner's on here, a special shout out to Nick, one of our NGPA members, and as Stephanie said, UPS pilot, and another shout out to his mother, Terry. She just flew her last flight for UPS, and actually Nick got to fly it with her from Ontario to Louisville, UPS 2919. That was back about 2 weeks ago now. So congratulations, Terry, on a finished career at UPS. Nick, you get to carry on the legacy now. Thanks for helping answer some questions there. December 29th, he just posted it in there. Thank you, thank you. All righty, let's see. Time now, 4:51. So we've got about another 10 minutes left here. Travis Roberto. Travis Roberto, you are up next. You are live in the webinar. You can go and unmute your microphone. Go ahead with your question.
Michelle, Stephanie, and Brian, hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. This question is geared more towards Stephanie. This is a piggyback off the first question with the inactive application status. I received the email to update the application on the 28th. I did so, adding some additional things, some flight time, some PIC time, halfway mark of the master's degree, maintaining the 4.0 GPA, and the completion of the line check pilot development, which it was active the previous year. So I'm just curious, perhaps that maybe the flight time benchmark or baseline had increased for this year. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a clerical error on my part that would nullify the application for the entire year.
The benchmarks haven't changed. Nothing has changed from year to year. So unfortunately, I would have to look at your application specifically to see what the challenge could be. But again, the automated system is really determining what your qualifications look like, and if you have, and it may be flight times. So one thing I did not mention, it's not just how many flight hours you have, but how long it's taken you to get there. So for example, if you have, as a commercial pilot, 3,000 flight hours, but it's taking you 15 years to get there, we know that you're not flying that frequently, and we have some concerns about that. But if you've got those 3,000 flight hours and you've done that in less than 8 years, you get a little more credit for that, quote unquote.
Sure. Understood.
So again, it's really for everyone who is inactive, unfortunately, it's not possible to look at every single one of your applications to determine that. Our system determines that ultimately for us, again, because of the numbers of applications that we get. So we look to that, and I do apologize for you being inactive. And of course, at this moment, you would have to reapply again next year.
Okay, understood. And is there any evaluation to the flight time being I spent 2 years as a full-time sim instructor. Is there any evaluation or carryover for that? Obviously, spending 2 years not on a line flying position hurts the total time. So yeah, I'm just barely over 3,000 hours after 5 years with the company. So either way, I'll keep an eye on it, and I appreciate you taking the time to answer the question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Up next, Garrett Johnson. I somehow just lost there we go. Garrett Johnson, sorry, I lost my ability to unmute someone, but it's back. Garrett Johnson, you're live on the webinar. Go ahead with your question.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brian, and Stephanie and Michelle. Thank you very much for being on. My question, I'm a young guy. I'm 28 years old. I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and I'm a flight instructor, but I was wanting to know if UPS had in back of their mind trying to pair up with any flight schools for guys that are low time guys, or are they trying to go more towards the airline guys and picking up the regional guys that have been there for a little bit while, or are they trying to mold some of the young guys to stay with their company for their entire career? So just wanted your thoughts on that. And if there was any shot for me, even though I have about 1,100 hours within this year, if I know it sounds like my resume would be thrown out the window, but I was just kind of curious on the back end of this.
You're well on your way though, Garrett. Don't count yourself
short. Yes, you are. And we don't, I just want you to know we don't throw resumes out the window. I just want to clarify on that one too.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
So
figure of speech.
We haven't as of yet looked at a program similar to what the majors have, like Delta, United, working with flight schools to get essentially cadets and then work toward getting the flight hours to be on the jets that we fly. But we do have a program called Flight Path. It's an internship. It's what we do with that is it's a paid internship for a year for someone who would come and work at UPS here in Louisville and learn some of the back of the house operational aspects of the flight program of the airline. After the year with us, we then, if you're interested in continuing to fly, we would then move you on to AmeriFlight, which again, with COVID, right now, AmeriFlight's only hiring, or they're not hiring as many people as they were, and they are definitely giving the UPS interns an opportunity to come and fly with them. So while you're at AmeriFlight, you are earning the hours, again, to be highly competitive. So you're flying for AmeriFlight for about 3, sometimes 4 years, depending on how frequently you're flying. to get close to that 3,000, 4,000 flight hours total. And what that also does is bring you back into the process for an interview, right? And to some degree, you have a little bit of an advantage because you're familiar with the UPS culture. You're already familiar with some of the processes. You've been here. Some of the pilots and management pilots that are here are aware of you. So that's the program that we're using right now. That internship it's not limited to anyone as far as age is concerned. You have to be within 2 years of graduating the last degree program that you were in. So 2 years out of a bachelor's degree or 2 years away from a master's degree. And I believe we only require 250 flight hours to apply for that internship. So it is a great way to at least get your foot in the door. We hire 12 interns in a year. So it's not as big as a program, again, as the intern or the majors have, but it is another way to potentially get in the door and start with our process to ultimately become a pilot for us.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your question. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Garrett. Great answer. Good to learn about that stuff as well. All right, hey, David Marino, NGPA member. David Marino, how are you? You are unmuted. Well, yeah, you unmuted yourself. Go ahead with your question. Good to hear from you, David.
Hi, Brian, Stephanie, Michelle. Thank you very much for hosting this today. It's been very, very informative. I would just like to clarify, I heard mention of filling out a new application every year. I just went on today and my application was started in 2020, but it's still considered active. Should I still fill out a new application or just keep on going with this one?
When you saw it, you said 2020, was it started on December 28th?
No, actually it was started in June and I had not received an email about, updating it or anything.
And that's probably because I'm assuming it wasn't completed in June. Is that correct?
It's completed. Yeah, everything's completed.
So for you, David, you have, if you're still active, then you're still active. I would still just for purposes of having one on file, still fill it out for 2021. And I can say that if you use the same email and password, a lot of that information that's in the application you filled out in June will populate over for you automatically. All you'll need to do is update whatever information has changed. So updating your flight hours, if your address has changed since the last one, you can do all of that. But for the most part, that information will populate over for you. So the process will be a lot faster this time than it was with the one you filled out in June.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question, David. Okay, so time now, we are at 4:59. I say we take one more question, and I know to be respectful of everyone's time, then we'll cut it off. But for those of you who are still in queue, there's 14 of you in queue right now with questions. We're gonna do one more question to round it all out. And then we are gonna put up email addresses here at the end. If you still have a question that hasn't been answered, feel free to shoot an email to the email addresses that you'll see on the screen at the end here. And those will hopefully be answered eventually from the lovely Stephanie and Michelle. So let's see, Jason Mankowski. Jason, unfortunately, because of the version of Zoom you're using, you are not eligible to jump in on this. I'm getting an error message. Jason, I apologize. So I'm going to have to skip to the next person. Luke Jacobs. Luke, welcome to the webinar. You can go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Oh, hey, good afternoon. Thank you for putting this on. This is a really informative webinar. It was just to pop up. I did see it. And I was referred to by a friend of mine. So I do appreciate it. My question is more for like, so I'm a former military Marine pilot, just made the transition. I am currently flying with another company. How does that work for UPS? I have an application in, it says active. What do you guys look at when, or how do you view people who are currently with a current company, but are looking to move to UPS?
Favorably? No, we don't hold that against anyone, especially in this day and age. We understand that this pandemic has made choices that people have to make from a lifestyle perspective interesting. And we also understand that, especially for someone like you, Luke, who has separated from the military, in the interim, we really don't expect you to sit around and wait for UPS to call. We want you to make the decisions that are the best for you and for your family. We will continue with the process ultimately, because the decision to leave where you're flying now and come to UPS is yours. It's not ours. We are looking again for the most competitive candidates that we can find. And if it should happen to be you and we go through the successful process to the point of job offer, then again, it's up to you to take the offer or to not. For us, we really are not going to hold anything against anyone. We've had several candidates who are currently flying with other airlines who have chosen to come to UPS. I made an offer to a person specifically who was sitting in training at another airline when he got the job offer from us and left their training to come here. So it's not something necessarily that we hold against anyone. I don't know if you have any stories like that, Michelle, if you've experienced something like that.
I do not. I mean, I've had that question before when I was conducting interviews with the airline, and no, we do not hold that against anyone. And I've had those same situations where they've been in training and they've opted to leave the training they're in to come to UPS. So many of them, you know, that's where most of them want to come to, is to UPS.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, great. And if I can, I'll pile on. What's the internal rec process? I know every airline's different. I'm just trying to understand this one.
Thank you for asking. I saw someone's asking about it in the chat. So the way it works is once an application is on file, we indicate that there is a recommendation attached to that application. We do that whether that person has been pulled through our processes or not. So getting your recommendation in at the point of application is good. You want to make sure that the person who's putting in your recommendation is able to, or they get the email address that you've used for your application. That's what makes it easier for us to find it. Just looking for a recommendation for Luke Jacobs, there could be 5 of them in our system, but with your specific email address, we can find your application and attach the recommendation. If your name is pulled through the random process, then we also will go and pull that recommendation. So the two travel from resume review through our entire process together. The recommendations help as a part of the decision for hiring if we get that far, but the recommendation is not going to be the deciding factor, if that makes sense.
It does. I guess my question was, does that internal rec put you in a different pool of candidates? You know, you said earlier 4,000 applications is what you have, or 7,000 applications is what you have. Having an internal rec, does that need, does that put you in a different pool and then randomize there, or are you still randomizing the entire pool?
Randomizing the entire pool.
Okay. Okay, great. No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Luke. I know that there's still 12 more people in queue for questions, and I apologize that we're not going to get to it here. We're already 5 minutes over our allotted time. That just means, Stephanie and Michelle, you have to come back and talk with us again, I think.
Well, I would love to. This was actually kind of fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a nice kickoff to our NGPA Up in the Air webinar series. So I really want to say thank you to you, Stephanie. Thank you to you, Michelle, for participating, for continuing to support NGPA, and for continuing to stand by us through these interesting times here, and sponsoring our organization, and for the great work that you're doing at UPS to tackle this massive amount of applications and bring about the best talent to carry the commerce of the world in these days.
Thank you.
So for everyone listening, we will have this has been recorded today. So we are going to be converting this into a podcast. You'll be able to search on the Spotify platform, the iHeartRadio platform, as well as Pandora podcast. You can just search NGPA podcast. You'll be able to listen to this in its entirety. Give us about a week or two to get that set up in the podcast format. Also, if you want to watch a recording, or maybe you have a friend who was not available to go through this with us in real time, you'll be able to head on over to our Up in the Air webinar webpage, which that keeps getting dropped in the chat. There it is again for you. You can go there, and a full video recording of this entire webinar will be available for you. Give us about 24 to 48 hours to get this populated back onto the website. Also, while you're on that website, you can check out our entire schedule. We have an entire schedule set up for the Up in the Air webinar, and we're going to continuously add more content as we head throughout the next couple of weeks and months. Up next, we'll be sitting down with leaders at Alaska Airlines on January 27th, right back here on Zoom at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The link to register also on that page. And again, you can go to ngpa.org in the top right portion and hit join now to become a member and support our great organization and the work that we are doing here. Coming up next is going to be on your screen a little bit of music to get you out in a fun way, as well as 2 email addresses. That's going to be email addresses where you can then ask any further questions you might have for our friends here at UPS. So check out those email addresses. They'll be up on the screen for at least 3 minutes at the end of this before we close out the webinar. And on behalf of the entire NGPA Board of Directors, our executive leadership team, Stephanie, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to UPS, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. So take care of yourselves and each other, everybody. We'll see you soon. So long from NGPA and from UPS. Take care.